Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm excited to be here. We have a special guest from Idaho joining us from Moms for Liberty, a great American organization. They're doing a lot of really good work for parents and school systems and really protecting kids throughout America. Moms for Liberty is it's a conservative political organization focused on parental rights and education, founded in 2021 in Florida by some mothers that were concerned with what was going on in their school system. They initially formed in response to COVID-19, school policies like mask mandates and remote learning and also vaccine mandates were issues that were up at that time. But its stated mission is to fight for the survival of America by unifying, educating, empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government, emphasizing that we don't co-parent with the government. So they engage in activities such as challenging school curriculum on topics like LGBTQ plus rights, race, critical race theory, discrimination, pushing for book removals from school libraries, endorsing conservative school board candidates, and organizing training summits, advocacy campaigns against what it views as government overreach in education. So really great organization doing a lot of, in the trenches type work for parents, really looking out for the kids and stuff like that. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest up here tonight, Miss Cierra from Idaho. Thank you so much for coming in here tonight.
Hi, how are you?
I am great.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so this is our second show that we've done. We did one with Tammy Nichols and Heather Scott from Idaho, and just wanted to hear more about your organization personally and what you're doing up there in Idaho.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory from what we talked about last time. I am a former substitute teacher for where I live in Twin Falls, Idaho, the school district. I was an aspiring teacher as well. I was there nearly every single day, and I absolutely loved it. My son was in first grade there, and I have two little daughters that would soon have attended there as well. Upon my time, being a substitute teacher there, I had noticed that my son's teacher was kind of falling behind. He was a new teacher to this district, but he apparently had a lot of experience previously. So I kind of was curious about that. I brought up my concerns, to the principal herself, and she told me, I'll just kind of let it work out, but we were getting a little further into the school year, and I was seeing what my son's class was doing compared to the other first grade classes. And I thought, their class was pretty far behind what the other three classes were doing as their standard. So what I did was I decided I was going to look up this teacher's credentials. So I just typed his name into Google, and one of the things that popped up was the teacher's name, that he's a lover of cross-dressing and wigs. And of course, that startled me. It was a Facebook post. I just clicked on it, and from there, I was able to find these skits, so to speak, TikToks, and they were videos of him in his underwear, videos of him depicting touching himself to video game characters, some political violent ones as well, some that were a little weird to me because conservatives were depicted in them, and they would get shot in the head. So what I did was I gathered all these videos and I sent them in to the school district anonymously. Within about an hour or two, I noticed that some of these videos were getting taken offline. So I thought something was obviously going on because these videos had been up for quite some time. Um, the next morning, all was normal. I went to school with my son. I was working in another classroom, and I was thinking, surely, they're going to ask me to cover this teacher's classroom like they have in the past. And sure enough, he stayed there all day, and I followed up with the district, and they told me that these videos were a form of artistic expression, that he's just kind of like an artsy drama guy, and this was all in all what they considered fine for someone that works in their district. So that wasn't enough for me, because that's odd. This is someone who's entrusted with children every day. This is someone who I allowed my son to be around every single day, and I shouldn't see my son's teacher in his underwear online walking around. So I took the necessary steps. From there. I followed up with the principal the following day, asked, where do we go from here? Because my son is still in this classroom, and I don't feel comfortable with that. Um, I was essentially was trespassed from there for bringing up these videos. I played the video and they trespassed me. I was also fired. I followed the next steps. I went to the school board. I showed them, and all in all, nothing happened. I did this professional code of ethics complaint on this teacher. They still thought that this was appropriate behavior of an educator, and from there, I just decided I can't just let this go. I know there's more people out there. I know there's more families who may have had situations like this where they feel trapped. So that is when I looked to Moms for Liberty and opened up a chapter here for our area.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really glad that, A, you've figured this out. But B, now you're putting in the work to kind of make things right in your area, because a lot of parents are oblivious to what's happening, right? They wouldn't know that these things are going on, that, this teacher is out there doing these things or whatever. And, kids are not stupid. They're online. They could definitely see this. Some of them probably did see these videos, right? Because they look up their teachers or whatever. They have cell phones. They have access to the internet. Like, they're very connected to the world, and so for them to see this is really kind of scary for for first graders, right? Like,
Yeah.
crazy. Like, they should not be seeing their teacher in his underwear, like, doing this weird shit.
Right.
So, like, seriously, like, it's messed up. I mean, I used to be a teacher, and there's like a code of ethics, and they were very strict, like, at least from my experience on like social media, stuff like that. And if you had something like that, I know definitely the schools that I worked in, you would get fired.
Yeah.
No questions asked. And so, for them to kind of, I guess warn him, really. It really seems like they just warned him, and then they tried to, cover up for the fact afterwards, is my perception, just from your story right there. So that's also very concerning, because rather than dealing with the problem directly, they'd rather just, hide it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I felt the same way, and I almost felt like I had a part in this, right? Because I showed them, they asked, well, where are these? They almost seemed interested at first, right? After they saw the initial videos, which were like screen recordings from my phone, they then wanted the links, which of course I'm going to give to them. And then that's when all of these things started to disappear. So it's like, I helped this guy get rid of everything, and then at the same time, if these videos are not an issue, well, then why did you tell him to take them down? Because that it's not appropriate, and that that's not how you want employees in your district behaving. But it almost seems like these schools, they have such a hard time admitting or just having any sort of accountability. You don't have to admit that you're wrong, right? They're not in charge of who these people are outside of work. But taking the steps to reassure parents saying, hey, we understand where you're coming from and this is an issue. That would have just eased my mind a little bit, but it was the fact that I was treated like an enemy from the get-go is what was so concerning to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to welcome my co-host to the stage, Madeline. Thank you for coming in here tonight.
I
Hi.
Yeah,
Thank
we're just talking about a story. So Cierra had a first grader. She learned about teachers online social media or whatever, and he was posting pictures of himself in his underwear and like doing videos like skits of where he's like shooting conservatives and like doing all kinds of weird like crazy stuff. She brought it up to the school board, and she noticed that they started removing the videos or whatever, and basically what they were doing is warning the teacher, from my perception, warning the teacher, and and then basically hit it after the fact. Like they were just like, oh, it's not a big deal. So that's when she got involved in Moms for Liberty. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
first graders too, like first grade teachers. So very, very concerning stuff. And obviously probably against their code of ethics. I would hope. I don't know Idaho specifically, but I can tell you right now that would be against Georgia code of ethics for teachers. Inappropriate things to have online. They harp on that pretty heavily, but that doesn't mean it's not happening here in Georgia too, because I guarantee it probably is. So
we were in Kentucky, and my daughter goes to preschool there as well, and her teacher told her she didn't like Trump, and my daughter has been like, my family does like Trump's events when he was running, and my mom, she was like, my mommy works with Trump, like we love Trump, and her teacher like gave her, and it's like preschool, first grade. That's how is this coming up? And like that at that age, we just shouldn't even have politics entering the classroom.
No,
teachers shouldn't even be talking politics, let alone posting, especially. That's the other thing. Like, we should have a discussion about, like, I wish there was more discussion around if you're going to be a leader and a teacher for the young children, you should think about if your profile is private or public. I don't think you should be allowed to have a public social media page unless you're posting, like you would want to be seen as a teacher.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was, a lot of these teachers ran to this teacher's defense, of course, right? And that was their big thing was, well, why were you looking up who is around your child? You're just looking for problems. And it's like that alone, like, do you understand that reasoning? Why am I looking up the stranger who is around my child 40 hours a week? That's your rebuttal to it. And plus, all of this was public. I wasn't friends with this teacher on social media. I didn't even have social media at the time. So for me to just type in this teacher's name into Google and to find dozens of videos and posts and Reddit accounts and Twitter and every single account, it just goes to show how chronically online this person was. And he wasn't under some stage name. He was under his own name with his face in the photos. And it's always concerning. You should always be concerned who's around your children because they are strangers at the end of the day. So, and then not to mention the fact that I was fired for bringing up these videos, but then they keep the teacher, right? And they transfer the teacher to another school. And the school that he was transferred to is a school that is for troubled youth, right? A lot of different cities have them. It's like an alternative high school. You go there when you have really bad grades or, you're fighting too much. And that's where he's around. And not only that, they had him be a drama teacher. So it's like, oh, so you liked what you saw. You loved his little acting skills. So now that was his like audition. I'm so apparently the thing. So it's been very eye-opening, and it's been completely uninspiring for me. I changed my degree. I do not want to be a teacher. I do not want to be associated with these people. And kind of, it's just sad what's happened to our education system, really.
Well, yeah. And I'm real quick. Like, I just want to say, when you go for a job interview, typically there's background checks for teachers. I mean, as a parent, there's background checks just to go on field trips, right? Yeah. And so my whole thing is like, I think there should be a social media, you know, I think especially public schools, you owe it to the parents. You're giving over your child for that many hours a day. I think that they should have a social media, like there should be a way for them to look up everything on social media as well. And if they don't and parents find out, I think it's an automatic, like there's a lawsuit involved. I think there should be standards for teachers, especially for elementary, and I think even worse, like middle school, high school, because we know those kids are going to get on social media. And then that's also opening the door. From what I have friends that have told me, the biggest issue and they've had to they've actually went, they're like high school teachers, and they said their biggest fear is when they started to see like if there was a female, like, and she's married, she's very Christian, so it's not bad, but she's beautiful. And some of the boys would follow her, and she's like, I just felt uncomfortable, and I just went private and was like, I'm not gonna, because she's like, I don't even want my students following me, because God forbid if I like you don't want that. It's an awkward situation. And so, yeah, I think there's like these questions about if you choose that profession, if you're like a home ec teacher and you're like posting Pinterest, I'm not worried about that. And I don't think any mom is going to go up to the school mad about you posting like recipes online. If I see, a guy that's like transitioning into a girl, going to drag queen shows, your students are going to look you up. And I think there needs to be an ethics code for social media and teachers and students.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the sad part is that we do have one in place, but they apparently pick and choose on when they want to follow that. I did a records request of their hiring material for when they have these teachers on board. And I was looking through the slideshow, and sure enough, they have several slideshows talking about social media policy. And it talks about, having a private account, what you do on your off time. It does reflect whether you want to or not, because your name and blah, 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 everything like that. But apparently it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I really think their emotions outweighed what they were trying to do, because I think logically, them looking back, they can see where they went wrong with this. They immediately thought that I was an issue and that they just had to shut me up quickly. And I think, sadly, if we had some sort of communication where they wanted the leverage with me, to hear me out, hear my side, as opposed to when I showed them the video, they kicked me out of the office and they called the police on me and have me trespass. Like, you're not going to have any sort of resolution treating anybody like that, let alone parents who have children at your school. And especially a public school where these are taxpayer funded schools, we should have a say, and we should have that open line of communication. But I was never once given that. And that's truly where everything will have its own downfall in the end.
Well, speaking of holding them accountable, and so I have a video that you're gonna like this one too. She really holds them accountable here. I'm gonna bring it up here, but if you're watching and you have any questions or comments or whatever, please leave them on there. Whatever platform you're on, YouTube, Rumble, we're on X too, so we're on a couple different platforms. So please, if you have a comment, please leave it in the comment section. If it's appropriate, I'll bring it up here, but I'm gonna bring up a video of Cierra in action. Here we go. All right.
This is Sierra Clarke.
An required paid staff meeting on district property during work hours. With paid breakfast using public funds, employees were subjected to partisan political advocacy. This meeting was allowed by this board, and the responsibility for it rests with all of you. Staff were told that public education was under attack and that its survival depends on voting.
We are under attack, and if we're going to survive, we need your help. What I'm talking about is we need your help in voting.
And the district needs help electing legislators who support public education.
We need your help electing legislators who support public education. Our mission and our ability to carry on the mission of public education depends on it.
They were told that only Republican votes matter in the May primary and that the general election is a rubber stamp on who wins. They were given deadlines and instructions on party affiliation. QR codes were handed out by some of those sitting behind me, directing them where they could change or select their political party. At what point does a mandatory publicly funded staff meeting turn into a campaign event? When an elected board chairman goes off script and pressures employees to vote in a particular party's primary.
It's just a matter of fact. If you aren't affiliated as a Republican and you don't vote in the May primary, you will have zero say in who represents you at the legislature. The general election in November is just a rubber stamp of who wins in May.
Reminds them that their votes can sway an election.
You all sitting in this room are basically enough to swing the election. Throw in a spouse or a friend or two who hasn't historically voted, who you convince to turn out and vote, and I promise you, those of you in this room will control who wins our primary election in May and who governs us and who chooses which bills affect public education in Idaho. I promise you that.
And urges them to recruit their friends and family while offering to personally advise them on candidates.
So if you guys have any questions about who supports public education or who doesn't, I am at your disposal. So you can find my email on the district website very easily.
This is electioneering using public resources.
Unfortunately, there's quite a few who have managed to get elected to our legislature whose goals don't align with those of us who support public education.
Now I have a trivia question.
Let me give you a trivia question.
Approximately 13,000 in district funds were used for that meeting. How many paper copies could have that paid for? Somebody throw me a number?
Somebody throw me a number.
Well, 325,000 classroom copies. Copies teachers are often told to ration. Now, disclaimers don't erase conduct.
I'm not telling you who to vote or how to vote or who to affiliate with or anything.
And Idaho law looks at authority, context, and effect. And the effect here was political pressure on a captive audience.
There will be candidates running who believe in public education, and there will be candidates who don't.
After the meeting, the chairman was recorded naming an elected official, telling staff to look up her Substack, calling her views insane and what we're up against. That confirms what exactly this meeting was.
Okay, so what? Our legislators like to micromanage public education. How does this affect me and you, and why should we care?
Okay, so what? Our district and our board members like to micromanage public education. How does this affect me and you, and why should I care? Well, you should care because public schools are not political forums and taxpayer dollars are not campaign tools.
There's probably between 500 and 600 of you in the room here. So add a spouse and a friend, and you've swung every vote in this county. And the same goes for the other districts
I have
around.
district emails that existed at one point, but when I later requested those same emails through a public record request, they were not provided, and I was told they do not exist. But you all want to preach transparency. But where there is transparency, there is accountability, and where there is accountability, there is liability. Thank you.
That was awesome.
It was so much fun.
My favorite part, that was beast mode too. Like, my favorite part about the video is you didn't change their words at all. Mm-hmm. You used verbatim exactly what the guy was saying. So you didn't twist it. You didn't say exactly what the guy was saying, and you called him out on it. And good on you.
Yeah. Yeah. So the issue with that, about a month and a half ago now, if not longer, right when our chapter launched, I was able to connect with a lot of individuals who not only just have children in this district, but also work for the school district as well. And it kind of gave them an avenue to express their concerns of stuff that they have seen. So one of these things was a mandatory staff meeting, right? A required staff meeting that they had to attend. And in the Google invite, it said, listen to Chairman Smallwood. He's the chairman of the school board. He's also the one who had a part in allowing me to get fired, which is just so funny to come back and see them all do this. And it talks about the importance of voting in the May primaries. Now, in our area down here in Twin Falls, we have elected these amazing legislators who really are just conservative at their core. What a Republican really means to be. And that has upset a lot of people because we have had a lot of, well, what we know as rhinos, right? People who are just Republican in name only. And these individuals have really put in a lot of laws that have held these schools accountable for what they're doing, and they don't like that. So now that May primaries are coming up where we can get to the point to get these guys voted out, they wanted to do this, essentially a campaign event, to encourage these teachers to go vote, which is one thing, but saying that these people are bad just because they don't like them, right? And then encouraging them in a roundabout way, that you can just vote and register as a Republican and just vote for, the least Republicans, right? Because they're the ones who like public education. But public education isn't always the best, and we can go on in many circles on why that is. But it's just the fact at the end of the day that these meetings, it was paid for by taxpayers, right? This wasn't what these teachers are assigned to do. And when we looked at the salaries and the hourly and the fact that they catered breakfast, this was, anywhere between 10 to what I think is closer to $13,000 just to have that political campaigning event, which is wrong on so many levels. So being able to find that out and bring this information to our legislators who have now filed a complaint with the Attorney General, and hopefully stuff can happen from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that crosses over into FEC rules and stuff like that. And, obviously schools also have rules for, use of school money or whatever, like that. Right. Obviously completely inappropriate. They could have done, if they wanted to have a meeting, they could have done it in their own auditorium, and it shouldn't have been about political stuff. It should have been about like what's going on at the school and, whatever the teachers need to talk about or whatever. Right. But that was completely outside of any bounds that I would expect for teachers in our school district.
Yeah. And then the fact that if they would have done this and it was optional and it was not on the clock, then that's entirely one thing. But it was the fact that you're requiring these teachers, right? So saying that they would have punishment if they didn't attend. And not only that, that we as Idahoans are paying for them to listen to that, and telling them, using words like swinging an election, and handing out where you can change your political party. That goes way beyond the scope of just educating them on the importance of voting, right? We all know by now that voting is important, but you're taking those extra steps to go in a roundabout way to get what you want as educators. And that's when it becomes an issue, because at that point it turns into, you're almost feeling like these teachers are feeling threatened, right? Saying you're under attack, your jobs are under attack unless you vote this way. And that's not an ethical way to go about things, because no one's losing their job. And our public education funding isn't going anywhere. It's already on record that it's staying the same for this next year. So it's just crazy to me how deep this really goes.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's under fire.
Right.
If you're doing your job. Right. If you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing as a teacher, you're not doing weird stuff on social media or whatever, then you're
Well, your
good.
job's still safe then, clearly. So you can even do weird stuff and your job's safe, and you can do good stuff and your job's safe. So at this point, that's what's sad. It really doesn't even matter.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but hopefully you
Yeah.
can get that changed.
Yeah.
So which I mean, you know, let's call out the good ones. Who's been helping you the most on this?
I have you know, we have a group of legislators down in my area. They're called the Gang of Eight, and they have been so awesome in this. And then obviously my up north friends, Tammy Nichols and Heather Scott, who I'm just forever grateful for helping me get this Moms for Liberty thing going. And then, you know, we've been open for about a month and a half now for this chapter, and we're gearing close to about 125 of members in my group so far. Well, not my group, in our group so far, and that ranges from grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, legislators, employees that are retired or employees that work in these districts, and they've really just been all coming together and trying to find a way that we can make these schools what we hope they are, right? And a part of that is, you know, what people call is book banning, right? Even though we're not banning books. So that was another one of my issues that I brought to the board about a month ago. Over 201 to be exact, books were in our local school libraries, not the public library. That's a whole nother story. But books that are absolutely disgusting, right? We're not talking about classic literature that may have an uncomfortable, you know, racial slur or cuss word here and there. I remember being in high school and you're reading these books out loud and you have to skip the word with your teacher. Well, this is far beyond the scope now. And these books I've been challenging, and instead of just accepting this list and saying, hey, I want you guys to look at these books. You know, they have some really disgusting stuff. They wanted me to fill out essentially a challenge sheet for every single book, 201 books, right? The same chairman of the board that you see me talking to that's swinging in his chair, he said, if you want to do it, you can do it. Now, I don't think he thought I would do it, but I did do it. So I've been in the process. I'm about a little over 30 in, and they're overloaded because it makes more work for them, right? Now they have to go through every single book and every single application essentially that I put in when they really could have just done a self-review. We have a code, an Idaho bill that passed in 2024 that, let's see, it would strengthen parental rights and create a clear pathway for addressing harmful materials accessible to minors in schools and libraries. House Bill 710. And that was a bill that was passed. So these schools do have a duty to do this. But instead of doing a self-review, it's up to the parents to, first of all, know what's in these libraries, right? Most parents aren't going to unless you have me, someone like me who's now made it their mission to look into these type of things, to then figure out what books are in these libraries, and then write an application for every single one. So I'm going to read, if you don't mind, a couple of these excerpts from these books that are accessible to kids as young as 10 years old. Okay, so this first one. Have you ever given Logan a BJ? It says the actual word. No BJs for you, Missy. What about plain old sex? If you're embarrassed to have him go down on you, won't you be embarrassed to have sex? Well, are you going to eat her? Yeah, Earl, I'm going to eat her. Do you even know how to eat? And then this other one, let's pretend I'm with you, big and all, getting ready to suck the right out of your, you know, and it just, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting. There's ones talking about sticking instruments inside of your area, boy and girl, and stretching it out. I mean, what are we doing with books like these in our libraries? And we have a local chapter here called, I don't even know what they call themselves, but they're the people who protest everything, right? They're like or whatever, Venezuela protests, ICE protests, whatever you'll name it. And they held over the weekend a banned book drive. So they requested banned book drives, all the books that are being challenged with the school district. Let's keep the access to the kids. And it's like, it just goes to show like how strange some individuals can be, right? You see this content. If anybody wanted to really get involved, they could see that this content's available. And not only that, you're undermining parents when likely many of these individuals are childless on their own. And I dropped my headphone, and they are asking people to donate more of these books to children. And it's just so beyond strange to me.
Yeah. Were those, I mean, maybe you don't know this, but were those books specifically like in elementary school library?
Middle school and high school. Thankfully, our middle school or our elementary schools are all clear of these books. Now, have they always been? No, they haven't. But once that one bill passed, they then remove them to a higher level, right? Because then that's supposed to make it okay that now, 7-year-olds can't get this, but now 10-year-olds can. And at what, or 11-year-olds can. And it's just, at that point, these are all still kids at the end of the day. Under law, these are all children, even if they're 17 years old. And if it's like, if you want your kids reading this type of material, then by all means, go to the public library and get it for free. Order it off Amazon. Nothing's banned. We're not banning books. We're just trying to get it away from children at the end of the day.
Right.
It's like laws are going to have to be set, or something is going to have to take place to where that there's going to have to be like a club or like a board where if new books want to come into public schools, they have to be on the list of allowed books. Or there's going to have to be like a board that, like almost like a book club where moms volunteer to get through and basically confirm that these are decent books. And it should be people that are bipartisan. I'm not saying that we can't have, different thoughts. It could be because somebody like me and somebody on the other side may have very different opinions on a book. But anything that's super sexual, things that are talking about transgender, we've all seen it. I mean, there is gay ABCs for preschoolers, right? So like I'm saying there's got to be a full stop to it, and there's going to have to be some type of bill in place or something. Maybe A1 policy would be the place to do it. Moms for Liberty. I'm not sure, but there's going to have to be something legislative put in place for public schools across this country that you cannot just bring in books to public schools. There's got to be something to really prevent that. And it's really sad because there's just not.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, these books don't end up in these libraries by accident. Somebody searched these books out and added them there. Now, am I saying that they knew 100% that these books had this type of content in it? No, I can't say that. But it's the fact that it is still your job as a librarian to make sure that these books are okay before they even touch the hands of children. You can't just say, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, you're supposed to know. You're the only person that should know this stuff. So,
or be like a list of books that are banned, I'm not like, they banned a lot of great legendary books like To Kill a Mockingbird and a lot of great books that we all read and grew up on. But at the same time, maybe there needs to be a list of banned books that, publicly we just all agree they're not appropriate.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the not knowing what's in the book is not a good excuse anymore. With AI and everything, you can literally scan an entire book or, a series of books or whatever in seconds, and it'll tell you if there's sexual things in there. You can tell it to find certain things so you know specifically if something was in there, and so that's not a good excuse anymore, in my opinion, because maybe that would have flown 20 years ago or something like that. But now with the technology that we have, I feel like along with your legislation, they could put that in place where it says that you have to like scan the book and look for specific things for in the the content that you're putting into the library.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we have shows, we have movies, those are all rated, right? PG-13, rated R. We need to have something in place where these books are rated on its own. You know, like I said, public library, that's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about ones that the sole access is to children only, right? Public libraries, you could say, well, adults read the adult teen section or whatever they like to say. But no, these are for kids who are kids under law, right? Minors who are, you're giving these kids these disgusting books. I mean, topics on incest, suicidal ideation, child prostitution, which I would say not even prostitution, child trafficking at that point, child rape at that point, books about teachers grooming students, drug and alcohol glorification, and an author who was just arrested for having um, child abuse material on his phone. You know, why are we allowing books by this author even in these libraries after his criminal record at this point? So it's just, at some point these schools have to start taking accountability and looking at themselves, that they are a part of this problem too. And it's a reason why so many parents are choosing to go to private school or to homeschool like I do now myself, because they don't have accountability. And when you bring something up, you're treated as the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think about, and we were talking about this before we started here tonight, but in my area or whatever, Republicans, they keep bringing up, like, we need to have the 10 Commandments, or like, they like these type of things in school. But this is where it comes back to bite you, because, like, then once you're not in charge, once they have a liberals in charge of it or whatever, then it comes back in these forms and stuff like that. And so for me, for public schools, I just want it like a reading, writing, arithmetic, the basics. Keep all the other stuff out of there. Like, that's not what they're there for. They're there to learn. They're there to graduate, and that's it. Like, you can teach them ethics and stuff like that, but, like, keep the religion out, keep the sexuality out in the same way. Like, and so I just always caution conservative, because to be honest with you, I don't care if they have the 10 Commandments in school. Like, I went to a Catholic school, I don't care personally if they have that in there, but I don't want that to turn into having pride flags and, trans flags and LGBTQ clubs or whatever like that, because that's what it does. It opens the door for those things to happen. And so that's why I always caution people about that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what about most schools don't even make you stand for Pledge of Allegiance anymore?
I know.
Well, Georgia,
I know. I think they give you can have the option when you have so many teachers, not all of them, when you have a good percentage of teachers across the country who apparently hate America, right? Hate everything America stands for. Having the American flag means, you're racist or whatever else they're going to tell you, right? You're a fascist. When you have a teacher that has that mentality, no, they're not going to force the kids to stand up. They may not even tell them to do it at all, and that's my experience with a lot. When it comes to Pledge of Allegiance, I went to a city council meeting the other day, and the mayor herself said, if you would like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And that stuck out to me. As a mayor of the city, you're saying, if you would like to, it's no, you're getting up, we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. When you add those extra words, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way, hearing someone in that position making it seem like the Pledge of Allegiance is optional. It's not optional. You just do it. It's just what you were designed to do. That's what we've been doing since we're little kids. No one puts that much thought into it, and it shouldn't be a political statement when you're just doing it in unity. That's what it's meant to be, is to be united. So
my daughter's 4, and like I said, I was very confused on why she came home saying that about her preschool teacher. I don't care if the teacher was having a conversation outside of, with another teacher and they just overheard it. But the bottom line is, you can't have this. If you're a teacher, you're there to teach, educate them on reading, math, science, the basics. You are not there to tell them whether you like the country, you like the president. And honestly, if you don't like the president and you don't like our country, why are you standing in front of a classroom full of the future Our
Right.
our children are our future, and if we have teachers that are continuously anti-hate America, hate speech, just political violence starting in middle school, they start talking and, as you were saying, basically teaching them how to be a certain way and grooming them, then what are we grooming the future to look like? That is so scary to me.
Yeah.
I don't even, it's got to end. Something has to end.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
It's getting scary just seeing what these kids are being taught and feel like it's normal when it's not normal, and it's really sad that that's their belief, growing up to hate everything that America stands for. Of course we have a dark history, and I am not against, you know, things that things that are uncomfortable to talk about in schools. We've all had to do that, whether it's Native Americans, where it's slaves. Yes, that is stuff that we should hear, but we shouldn't feel like it's our fault. None of us were alive at the time, and you shouldn't feel self-conscious about that, or singled out based off of history. It's history for a reason. It has nothing in this way, has no reflect on what's happening today.
Well, my issue with history is I feel that if you were to take a history major from my generation, my parents' generation, a boomer, and somebody now, I feel like if you gave them a U.S. history test, they would all pass, fail different questions, because I believe we keep rewriting history. The textbooks, I remember getting kicked out of a class in college because I fought with my professor, and I said, well, of course you wrote the textbook. But I said, that doesn't mean that this is a fact. This is your opinion that you're trying to make a fact. Right. The problem is we also have teachers, and we have very left-wing people rewriting history, and our children are actually learning history to be very different than what we learned. And that is another thing I have a huge issue with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is something I brought up in spaces and on these shows or whatever, is like, how do we attract a different workforce? And I don't know the answer. How do we, because obviously a certain type of person is being attracted to this career field, and we're getting this same result. And so how do we attract a new workforce? And I don't know that answer. I brought up troops or teachers would maybe be a good option, or retired military and stuff like that. At least you have, somewhat patriotic people that are coming into this workforce. That most of them are going to be very proud of the country that they served and stuff like that, I would think. So that's one way, but I really don't know how to solve this, because I too have a teaching degree, and I know the type of people that were in the classroom with me were very left leaning, and so I don't know why they're all attracted to that job field, but it's a problem, because this is how it's manifesting. And so I don't know that answer, but maybe higher ethical standards will deter somebody from doing that, or at least it'll keep them honest.
You know what I find interesting is Christine Bish, speaking of her the other day, we were talking about education, and we were talking about my grandma. She's retired. She was a speech pathologist, has her doctorate in it. But her, she's Catholic, but she really enjoys going to the underprivileged school and like helping with the kindergarten and the first grade teachers. It's just like what she does now that she's retired, because as you get older, you're bored if you just are retired and sit at home, right? And she, me and Christine were talking about it, and she goes, what'd be great is if we basically gave older people or retired boomers an opportunity to go and volunteer at schools like that, and then they could get their taxes written off, because a lot of them are in retirement. So we talked about for Social Security, people are on Social Security to basically get the write-off. And that would be a great thing, because a lot of grandparents and as you get older, your innocence starts to come back, and you also are you're wiser than a lot of the younger people. So I think also having more oversight in the classroom. When I was growing up, there was always parents that volunteered and came in. You don't see that anymore, because there are all these crazy rules and regulations. I mean, the sad thing is, me and my friend were talking about it. My mom, we used to love like looking in the windows. Our moms would look in preschool, and you'd see your mom and you'd wave. You can't even, a lot of preschools and you can't even go in. You're stuck behind a door, and they have to bring you your kid, or you're in a line, because of, I guess you would know more than me, but I guess for security issues. And COVID really changed the game for that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I could see sometimes with the security issues, but I get it. My daughter's in preschools also, and they line the kids up outside like rain or snow, and sure enough, they're all happy. They're happy to be outside. But yeah, no, it is different. And you used to have something called PTA, right? Parent Teacher Association, and you would go and you'd be involved in these schools, right? And I remember my mom being a part of it, and you would have like monthly meetings, and a lot of it was, well, a lot of what Moms for Liberty does, right? You go, if you have an issue, you say what's bothering you, you say what you want change, and it's not all hidden behind all these rules, right? First you need to talk to the principal, and then to the director, then the superintendent, then the board, but only if the boards approve you. And it's like, what are we doing? Why can't a parent just go and say, hey, this is what I have issues with? Because that's what I did, and I was trespassed, and that's what's just so sad about it now, because now it's called the PTO. Maybe it's Parent Teacher Organization. And what all that is, it's like a teacher worshiping program, right? It's come on in, you could bring coffee to the teachers, let's set them up a taco bar, and I need everyone to bring cheese and chips. And it's like, what are we doing? It's just there to just kiss the asses of these teachers all day and not question anything they do. And it's just, you have to be blinded by loyalty at that point, and you don't want to get kicked out of the club, right? Because then all your other mom friends are a part of it. And that's been a big issue, right? Is no one wants to say anything because they're afraid of what their friends might think, or they may not be part of like the cool kids club anymore, and they don't want to be seen as a problem, where it's like, I've never cared if I've been seen as a problem, because that's not my problem. But I would rather stick up for myself and my kids at the end of the day, because if there's any fight you're gonna fight, it's for your children. So
Well,
that's just me.
crazy. We pay a lot. I mean, where I live, especially in the two places I live, we pay a lot of taxes. So our child, it's a very small area in the one, and you can only live in this very small area to go to this school. It's like an independent school, and then there's the private school, and we're all kind of right there. And you pay a lot of money and for the taxes. And I will say this, we're going to continue to pay taxes. People want to see the education to get better. They want to see your education get better. They want to know that we're hiring safe and honest and good leaders for our children. And I do fear the more we start to see family compounds, the more we start to see kids pulling their kids out of schools. Not everybody is going to have the crazy, certain money for kids to go to public schools in larger cities, especially. It's not always feasible for families. Yeah. So I think we're going to my question is, are we going to continue to see smaller groups, moms get together and like put them on homeschool and do these homeschool groups? Because I know in some of the larger cities, but like more of the suburbia, we're starting to see more of these mom kind of groups, or these small collective groups, and they kind of go out and do field trips together, and they all the siblings go. And I'm curious of what the future looks like, and teachers may not realize it, but I do think that they're going to start to see more kids being pulled from schools. And it's not just due to immigration and being afraid to go to school. It's parents are done with this. And then that goes to show, if parents are pulling and educating, what are we paying taxes for?
Right. And why do they need more money when there's less enrollment? And that's been the big issue in Idaho right now. I think our entire state has like 1.9 million people, something along those lines. It may have gone up, may have gone down. But just last year, I think there was about 3,000 kids statewide that unenrolled from the school system and either went private school or they went homeschooling, right? So that type of impact is huge for a smaller state like ours. And we have this thing called parental choice credit, which was signed into law last year, which has just infuriated these schools. That was the whole reason why there was that whole electioneering, teacher meeting, right? It was because our current legislators want school choice, and the ones that they want in office don't. So that's a whole nother thing. But there are parents who are taking their kids out of schools, like myself, and and it works for me because I'm able to do that, right? I'm able to homeschool my kids, but that's not, like you said, that's not a feasible option for everybody. So we can't just abandon public schools altogether, because that's the majority of the people's their only option. So we have to keep sticking up. I could very easily say, oh, my kids don't go there anymore, I don't care, but I want to help make these schools better, because what if my grandkids go to these school one day? What if my niece, my nephew, when I have them one of these days, what if they go to these schools? And I wouldn't feel comfortable with the way that these schools are handled now to send them there. So
well, they also have, that's the future generation. So if we
Mhm.
continue to, if we don't invest in it, and I understand that, I guess I was bringing up, there is a lot of pushback with taxes,
Yeah.
people, a lot of issues with school boards, things like
Yeah.
that, because people are like, why are we increasing the budget here when
Right.
we're not seeing an outcome that's, no one's
Yeah.
achieving anything here. And so
Yeah.
that's another thing that's causing a big divide in cities and in states and with the parties, and that sucks.
Yeah.
It's just a whole, I feel like education is so, it's like healthcare. I feel like there's a
Yeah.
whole, it's so broken. We've let it get so far that
Yeah.
you don't even know where to begin. And unfortunately, I think kids are growing up really fast because of social media. And I think
Yeah.
social media is going to play a huge, at some point, we're going to have to get some rules, regulations around social TikTok, because TikTok is, I've never seen so many little kids in like crop tops and like
It's weird.
dance. It's weird. And I'm like,
It's weird.
I don't even get on TikTok like that. And I'm just like, I see little girls. I'm like, at the town center shopping, and I'm like, why are 10-year-olds like taking? I see them at the pool in like little bathing suits, and I'm like, I cannot imagine.
Strange.
Can you imagine looking back in life and from the time you're like 8 years old, there's bikini videos of you dancing, and I'm thinking, my daughter, like, I'm not gonna be able to stop it because she's gonna go to the pool with her friends. You can't watch them all the time.
Right.
But I'm like, that's a video public for the rest of your life. There's gonna be my 10-year-old dancing on a TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
that's mind blowing to me.
I know. And there's so many weirdos out there too that will save those, right? And that's what's the most terrifying part, is you don't know who's watching those videos at the end of the day. It's so gross. I know social media has really, of course, it's helped a lot of things, but it has ruined so many things. And I think that's why we see so many, well, it is why we see so many teacher scandals coming up, is, well, because social media. You didn't know what your teacher's first name used to be back in the day, and now you know where they live, how they vote, how they dress, where they drink, where they eat. You know way too much. In my case, you know what kind of underwear your child's teacher's wearing, and it's just like, what is going on?
And that's where I'm starting to think, like, and I get it, there's like a freedom of speech, there's this, but
Right.
You also have to ask, like, if you're in sorority, if there's photos of you from like college where you're just getting trashed at your sorority party, and then you're going to go teach a bunch of like high schoolers, I just don't know if that's like what we should be allowing. Should you have to have a private account? Like, if I was a teacher, I would not want my whole life, because how are students supposed to respect you? Instead of looking they look at you like a peer instead of looking at you like an adult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's funny because from that video or whatever that we played, the whoever it was, I don't know if he was a school board, whatever.
Oh, the chairman, the chairman of the board.
Okay, like he was saying that they're under attack. Well, no, you're not under attack. You're being held accountable for the things that you're doing. If you were doing the right thing, if you were just teaching and taking care of kids, then you would not be under attack. You would have zero issues because nobody would be coming after you.
No.
Yeah, you might have a parent that's frustrated with a teacher or whatever, like they don't like, but that's like, these are like one-offs. Like these are not big issues. You wouldn't be under attack if you were doing the right thing, and they have the opportunity to do the right thing, but they choose not to. Obviously, in your case, with the first grade teacher, they choose to kind of handle it in-house and in very like not ethical ways, in my opinion. So they wouldn't be under fire then.
Yeah, that's a majority of the issue, right? Is people are just finally they're getting tired of paying into a system that's just not working any longer. And these schools get so much money and it's never enough, right? It's we're always underfunded. That's the excuse for everything, is, we don't have enough money. But it's just, you could give these districts $1 billion and they'll find a way to say that it's not enough money. And at what point do we start looking at these teachers if our state test scores don't start getting better? I've seen anywhere between 30 and 40% are proficient on grade level for the state of Idaho. And that's a failing grade, And at what point do we look at these teachers? If you were bad at your job in any other scenario, right? You work at Costco, you work at a banker, you work as a construction worker, and you are not putting out a good product, you'd be fired. We got to start looking at, are these teachers actually teaching? Like, why are these kids so behind on the grade level? It's sad, because I know when I took my kid out of school and we've done homeschooling, I saw him go from what they call tier 3, bottom struggling, to now he's at what they would say a tier 1, and that was within a month and a half of teaching him, right? And I get that, I'm able to do that one-on-one, so obviously that's going to help more. But then maybe you need to have smaller classroom sizes so you can give these kids more one-on-one support. So there's just, you don't even know where to look to begin to try to improve these schools, because it always comes down to they want more money. And if you question it, well, then you hate public education, right? You want to just only fund Christian schools because you're a Christian nationalist. It's like they have a comeback for everything, and it's just, you just get tired of it, honestly.
Yeah.
What about turnover rate? Like, one thing I can say, I went to a pretty good school growing up. My sisters and I did, and I will say that one of the things is about this school is it's K through 12, but it separates the high school. Like, you go to 6th grade, and then once you're in 7th grade, you're on the high school side. The rest is elementary to middle school. But I guess my question is, we always had a lot of the same teachers and community. And even when I talked to friends in public schools, back in the day, teachers were very much, they might move around classrooms due to class sizes, like, from 1st grade to 2nd grade, whatnot. But one thing I do recognize now is that there is a lot of turnover with teachers, and some teachers and kids, like, they do better with other teachers. And when you don't have those teachers that you've grown this relationship with over the years, that also can play a big part in the school, because when you have the same teachers there, they get to know the school, they get to know the students, and they can also call out what's wrong. I think another issue is we do have a horrible, I think the turnover rate in public schools is not great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's not a one size fits all, right? So many kids learn in so many different ways. And if you don't have a personality that really will mesh with that kid, some kids need that little extra, care, right? They hate school, they have a difficult, hard life at home, whatever have you. And sometimes you just need a reason with them, be like, hey, listen, I know this sucks. I know this is so boring, this schoolwork, but let me help you. Let me get through it. I mean, so many kids that I were able to work with that just were pissed off at the world. I mean, throwing chairs, cussing at people, flipping people off. And I was able just to go in there and say, like, hey, dude, let's just get this over with already. I know your teacher's super annoying. I think she's annoying too. No, I didn't say that. But, just kind of level with them and know that you're a human at the end of the day. The kids, you build a rapport with them, and you grow a friendship with them in that sense that, I don't know, you can make a difference. And that's what's sad, because it is such a fun job. I had so much fun there. I loved being there every single day. And my heart was broken when all this happened, knowing that I would never see these little kids again. But now I just continue to fight with them, even though they've probably all forgotten about me by now.
Well,
but yeah.
I appreciate, people like you willing to go out there and put in the work to try and make it better, because I guarantee you most parents do not know what is happening in the school because they just don't hear about it. They don't hear about it from their kids or whatever. So they just assume that everything is on the up and up, right?
Yeah.
So they don't really understand. And the thing is like, I'll bring up my sons as an example, right? They turned out really well going through public schools. We really had no issues. But the thing is like, my youngest son brought up that he had a teacher that was pushing an LGBTQ club or whatever. And I was like, I was like, what? I was like, I didn't, I was shocked that they even had something like that at his school. I'm in a red county, red district. Like it, I didn't even know that they would have something like that, but apparently teachers are pushing it, you know, and that's what's crazy is that it's allowed on school campus, right? Like, I don't think that stuff belongs on school campus, right? If your kid wants to go to LGBTQ club, that should be something extracurricular, not involved with the school, not happening on school campus, and teachers definitely should not be pushing that thing to the kids.
Right.
And so but it's happening, and I'm sure it's happening in a lot of places. If it's happening in my little area here in South Georgia, like it's definitely happening in big cities for sure, and probably in most school districts around the country. And most parents probably are unaware that it's happening.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's interesting because Santa Monica Elementary through high school, their statistics are higher. In California, California education system, the high schools, the children, there's more children that tend to, it doesn't lie, those that want to transition and, you know, claim they're a furry, those type of things. The stats are out now. You look California, especially in Santa Monica school district, they are 5 times what, like, you know, Georgia, Idaho, and it's not because there's more students. They size wise, they're about the same as the ones in Orange County or ones in my home state. That's not it. It's the fact that that's the ideology that these teachers and that the parents accept. So of course you're going to see a bigger uptick there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and it's very sad to hear those numbers because it's what are making these kids feel like they have to change who they are. And it's sad when self-love has completely gone off the table, right? That used to be a big thing that side would preach, right? Self-love, body positivity, all bodies are beautiful. And then all of a sudden there was this hard left turn of if you don't like who you are, it's because you're not who you are, right? You need to change who you are. You need to cut off body parts and so you can feel normal.
Conform.
And it's sad, you know, because if people are adults and they want to do that, I wish that they could find happiness with who they really are. And if they still feel like they can't be happy that way, then by all means. But when it comes to little kids, it's just it's scary, honestly.
Well, it's feeding their anxiety, right? It's
Right.
feeding their, like, they probably do have mental health issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's we see it everywhere in this country. But the thing is that, like, approaching it in that manner is feeding their anxiety. It's making it worse. You know, when they talk about like transgender children and adults or whatever are the highest risk for suicide. Well, why is that? Because they have this mental health issue, and now they're feeding into it and making it even worse, feeling even more ostracized in society or whatever. And like, you know, some may feel special or whatever because they get attention, you know, from this or whatever. But the thing is like, is it really making them happy? I would guess that like more than 99%, it's not making them more happy. It's feeding their anxiety and it's hurting them in the long run. And a lot of them come to regret it. We see it all the time, and in Spaces on X, you know, they'll come and talk about it and talk about how they were kind of, you know, coached into making these decisions, right? And you know, they had really bad advice from adults that were around them, and now they really regret it.
I guess that's the thing too, is like social media, like if they're, you know, if they're left-leaning parents or if they're in schools and they talk about these things and then they're on social media, you start to see all these furries because those are the things you talk about, right? Or if you start to see, you know, all these liberals with blue hair, it's just like, if the algorithm, I have somebody that works at the Pentagon, and all she talks about, and she's a big, she's let out a ton of different stories. She's broke a ton of different stories on the algorithm and how it's affecting children. And that's where I started to really get into it, because she said one of the most dangerous things in our society right now is our children are being fed an algorithm every day of their life. And I think that's where we can cross the whole social media from teachers to the students, we have to start really figuring out how we can combat that. And also phones in schools. We should not have phones in schools. That's another thing that they've allowed, which is crazy.
Yep. The phones, the Chromebooks, how everything essentially it boils down to when you get to middle school and high school, how much of the content is just on the computer. So if they're spending all day on the computer at school and then in their free time at home, they just hop right on the TikTok. I mean, you have no outlet besides just the screen in front of you all day. And that's just not a way to live, because what is that doing to you mentally? Not only just how you're not developing, but your social skills, right? Because then you'll start to feel more sheltered. And when you start to feel more sheltered, then you're a lot more vulnerable, right? And that's when these dark thoughts can kind of come into these kids' heads of, well, I feel this way because I'm not who I really am. So of course I need to change it. And like you said, they change, but you wonder, obviously, they're not happy with themselves at the end of the day, because the mental issues still continue. And then you see a lot of them who feel ostracized, because if they're still not happy, you can't say you're not happy, right? Because then people will use that as a reason why you shouldn't transition. And it's just a whole revolving circle that really never ends.
I think a great case study of it is like back when the vape came about. I remember my sister was in high school. One of my sisters were in high school still. And like her friends had vapes, and it was like all the YouTubers at the time. YouTube was a big thing. This was prior to TikTok really launching. Everybody was having, and my mom's like, yeah, it's weird. The parents kind of lost control, because basically every kid had one. You almost like could not stop your kid from vaping. And I'm like, that there was even at the private schools, the private schools were saying kids were going into the bathroom and like setting off the fire alarm because they were vaping. So there were so many kids consistently throughout the day coming into vape. Wow. And it's like, that should show right there that how quickly something can just get picked up, how quickly a movement can happen. And it really does scare me, because I saw how quick, and parents really had no control. And you can hear it today. People talk about it all the time. The Gen Z, everybody is either has a vape or is zinning. And that's another whole, like, it goes back to the books, it goes back to teachers, and it goes back to the parents. If we have to punish our children, and, we have to punish our kids, why are we allowing our kids to walk around the vape? I remember my sister brought one, and she's like, everyone has one. I threw it out the window of my car, and she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, you're not going to vape. It's like, if you're going to have a vape, I was like, it's not even cute. And it was back, it was the Jewel, there was like this for them. They were cute. She didn't even really hit the vape. It was just the whole idea of holding it. Yeah. And I'm like, I said, Ella, this is bizarre. And I just threw it out the window. I was like, no, that's crazy.
I know. At least back in my day, we used to just smoke regular cigarettes, and that was cool. But
you had to go outside and see with cigarettes, so you had to hide. Totally. It was so much hard. You smelled it. But that's the thing from vapes. Like, it was that quick because they didn't smell it. It was easy to hide. And then same way though with like TikTok and the algorithm and everything. Like, we are not seeing what our children are watching and doing. I keep urging my friends. I'm like, you should look at when you turn on their you should ask them not to go through their messages, just pull up their TikTok and see what they're scrolling, because you can really see what kids are really like taking in if you just pick up and look at their algorithm. And my friend was like, I can never do it again. It really kind of freaked me out.
Ugh. That's heartbreaking.
Kids aren't stupid too, and I actually caught some of my students, using, when we're talking about the technology and stuff like that. They, because most classrooms now they require kids to have Google Classroom or whatever, like they have it or whatever. Well, they were messaging each other from different classrooms while they were taking exams. And because Google Classroom is allowed on their Chromebooks or whatever, they were feeding the answers or what, like I call them basically. But like, kids are super smart, and they're going to find a way around this stuff. And so that's another. Go
How
ahead.
do you think AI will play in that? How play into that? Like, I feel like I would never write a paper again. Like, you could just literally have AI write. Like, will kids ever really learn to write like a term paper, a book report? Because nowadays you can just go on to Grok and say like, write me a book report. Like, how are we going to know that students are actually writing their reports?
So there are systems that can tell if it's been written by AI. But it's pretty accurate. But that's one of that's what college professor, because I was an adjunct college professor. But so you can run it through there or whatever, and it can tell you with a great deal of certainty how much of it's been written by AI. So that's one way. So you can actually use the AI to determine if AI is used.
Plagiarized or not.
Yeah.
But then it wonders, like, can you tell an AI, say, hey, how can you write my book report without it being detected by AI, and then have it dumb it down a little bit, But yeah, I mean, there's definitely still ways to I'm sure go around it.
Like,
yeah.
As a kid, I remember like when you finally had to write your first paper and you had to cite remember when you learned to cite your sources and all those things? Now Grok does it for you. ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So like, regardless, like one of the hardest parts that sucked was you had to go through, you had to Google, you had to read, you had to highlight, you'd have to print it, highlight it, and then you'd have to really cite your source. And that was a whole part of learning. And my big thing as a parent, and as parents, we all need to figure out, how are we going to actually like keep our children learning that way? Because, or maybe they're never going to learn that way. Maybe it's going to be a completely new world where they're just, that's what it is. But then will kids ever even read a full book, or are they just going to read the Cliff Notes?
Oh yeah. We used to have Spark Notes back in the day.
Notes,
right? And that was like the coolest thing for me, because I was like, oh, perfect. I don't have to actually read these books, and you still have to read a lot of it, right? It would kind of summarize it, but you'd still have to do a fair amount. But yeah, now with AI, you could be just, hey, write me a book on, whatever, The Call of the Wild or whatever we had to read back then. And yeah, you definitely have a lot more resources. Because I don't even think we had laptops. Maybe I'm not old.
That was the worst. You would get on Spark Notes, and it was like the teacher read the Spark Notes and purposely came up with questions that were not on the Spark Notes.
Right. And you wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like, I gotta read.
This is maybe I shouldn't tell this on here, but this is a funny story. So when I was in junior high, right? We had junior high back then, not middle school. So I was in junior high, and we had this teacher that would allow you to do book reports for extra credit. Well, I figured out somehow that he wasn't reading them. Figured out that he absolutely was not reading them. And this is back in the day, like we wrote cursive. And so I wrote a cursive looking book report, and it was complete gibberish. It was complete, there's no words in there. Like, it was complete gibberish, and I got an A for it. And I figured out that he wasn't reading them. And so I wrote a gibberish book report, and I still got an A for it. So
that is so funny. Yeah, but I could get it. I mean, reading those book reports, God, could you imagine going through every single one and reading kids writing? And that's a lot. That's why I liked working in elementary, because when you would, grade their work, it's very, simplistic, right? Especially for the younger kids. It's like, oh, you wrote a number 2. Cool. And it's like, you got to move on. But yeah, that's a different deal up there.
Well, Cierra, we've had you here for about an hour and a half. Yes. So where can people find you? Where can they subscribe to you? What are the big things that you got going on for Moms for Liberty?
So you can find me on X, M for L Twin Falls. And then also, if you go for momsforliberty.org and you just look up your local chapter, if you wanted to get in contact with me, you just look up the Twin Falls County, Idaho chapter, and you can find all my information on there. But then you can get involved with your own local chapter, or if you do not have one, you can start one yourself, and I promise you would not regret it. There's the people you meet, and try and find a way to make a difference every day. It's priceless. So
yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming in here. I appreciate you sharing your story, because it probably resonates with a lot of parents. And you know, and it raises awareness too, because now a lot of parents are probably going to look into this, you know, and make sure that
Yes.
things are on the up and up, and they may find some things that shock them. And
Yes, look up your child's teacher. They're strangers.
yeah,
Always look up anybody around your children. I don't care who they are. Look up their doctors or dentists, whatever they may be. So,
yeah,
yep,
yeah. Look up their social medias. Get in
yep,
touch with your Moms for Liberty chapter in your area, and that's a good way to hold them accountable, even
yep,
though they may not be getting held accountable by the things that we're paying to hold them accountable. You know,
yeah,
it sucks. So,
exactly. So,
but you know, this is a good way to get involved and to see what's going on, and you know, to help the system.
yes, I agree.
So
All right.
follow Cierra, Moms for Liberty, Twin Falls, Idaho. Follow her, subscribe to her on YouTube. She's got a YouTube channel. I played the video from there, and I dropped it in the chat there. So thank you so much for coming in here and sharing your story. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our kids, because a lot of parents need public school. Like, they don't have the option to private school. They don't have the option to homeschool. They need public school. And so we need it, and we pay for it. So we need it functioning well. So thank you for what you're doing to try and help the system out.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. It was great talking with you.
Thank you. Yes. Bye.
Okay. Thank you guys. Bye.
All right. There you have it. Cierra from Moms for Liberty, Twin Falls, Idaho. Awesome guest. I really appreciate the work that she's putting in up there. Hopefully it raised some awareness to some of you that are listening. And, you know, hopefully, you know, if you have kids that are in school currently, you can kind of get some ideas of how to get involved, look into what's going on at the school, and also, you know, to hold teachers accountable and hold school districts accountable, because we pay for it. So with that being said, thank you so much for those that commented, reposted, shared, liked. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, X, and Rumble. I appreciate y'all, and you have a good night.